Level check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm meteorologist Steve Horstmeyer. Can't find my glasses. Oh, there they are. Getting ready to do our 7:15 live weather show. Got some good news, got some bad news, and you can guess the bad news has to do with no rainfall. But I'll be ready to go in a very short time. My clock on my computer, which doesn't have seconds, says in less than a minute. So we'll be ready to go here. I think I've got everything set and almost ready. So, as soon as the clock hits 7:15, I will take off and we'll start talking about weather around the tri-state. So, it's Monday, and that's not a good day. I don't know why it is about Mondays that are never good, but and then, for example, like Ethan Emery, he works, his off days are Monday and Tuesday, so it's his weekend. So his Monday is actually Wednesday, and that's the way it goes in this business. Okay, 7:15. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Horstmeyer, Chief Meteorologist here at Fox 19 Now. We are looking at our live shot from our tower cam. Now, our tower cam's up the expressway in South Fairmont, so we kind of moved it and zoomed in. And we like to do this every once in a while. Two things I want, actually more than two things I want to point out here. I want to point out that the traffic on the Brent Spence Bridge, both southbound, which is heading to the right, and northbound, which is heading to the left on the lower deck, is doing fine. You can see the sun is low in the sky with that kind of golden look. And if you look way here in the background, this is that wall along Interstate 471. If you look closely, you can see the traffic on 471 moving along pretty well. So right in here, you can see it also. So you can see a lot of information there. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at hot, dry weather moving back into the tri-state. Give me a second. I forgot to turn off the overhead lights. And now everything should look better. Okay. Color rendition without those yellowish lights up there is much better. All right, let's go ahead, first of all, and see what's coming our way. Of course, the weather computer just blew up because I forgot to hit a button. It'll be back in a second here. All right, now we can go ahead and see what is coming our way. It's 83 degrees at the International Airport right now. Some spots a little warmer, some a little cooler, but everywhere the humidity is pretty low, so it was a comfortable upper 80s. I think 88 was the preliminary official high at the International Airport. We have to wait till 8 o'clock when the final numbers come in for the day. And so there's our view from Turfway Park. We're looking off to the west-northwest, and you can see that everything was pretty nice out that way. No clouds in the sky, and that's good or bad depending on what kind of weather you need. And this is Clovernook Country Club, and what you can see there, same thing, the sky's pretty much clear. It's late in the day. There were a lot of golfers out there today as we watched them go about their playing their game. Because with that low humidity, and as long as you can take a break in the shade, it feels pretty good. And one more shot here. This is our shot from Newport on the Levee. Okay, now Newport on the Levee, of course, you all know where that is. There's also, we have a studio over there for a Bengals game, Bengals show that we have each week. And you can see the setting sun, still a little hints of some wildfire smoke up there, but not that much. All right, 83 degrees as we talk about this, and that looks like this if you're heading down to Oktoberfest, Cincinnati. 84 for the Thursday's high, 88 on Friday, 90 on Saturday, upper 80s on Sunday. No rain in the forecast whatsoever. Now that is good news for Oktoberfest goers, but for everybody else, this is kind of an interesting story. My wife was out watering her garden, and she'd been out for a couple hours already and was not even halfway done because it's so dry. And so I said, you know what, let me just go get some sprinklers. So finally, I went to the hardware store. We got a couple sprinklers, one that fits better. It's a circular one that kind of spins around for the front yard, and that fits the shape better. And then I got her one of those ones that tilts back and forth, and you can stop it because her garden's generally long and along the fences, and that helped it out. So she got the gardens halfway watered, and then just let the sprinkler do the rest. Can you believe it? It took us until September to get sprinklers, and we just did it by hand all summer. Woo! Unfortunately, the dry weather is going to stay pretty dry, and if it does get a little bit wetter, it's not going to be enough to break the drought. We're going to go into fall very dry, and probably a good portion of the summer or the autumn season is also going to be dry. Now, here's one thing you might want to know about. We do have a partial lunar eclipse and the full harvest moon tomorrow night. Now, the problem with seeing the eclipse is that there will be some cloud cover out there. Now, there might be thin spots in it. You might be able to see it. The eclipse begins at 10:12. It peaks at 10:44. Okay, but only 8% of the visible moon will be hidden. In other words, typically when you have a full moon, you've got that disk, and you can only really see half of the moon. Even though it's a full moon, it's half of the moon. And only 8% of that is going to be in eclipse here in the Cincinnati area. So not a big spectacular thing, but kind of nice if you can get a chance to take a look at it. Okay, here is the next weather maker. Down off to the southeast over the Carolinas. That is a little unnamed tropical system. It's unnamed because it's not big enough or strong enough to end up deserving a name. It didn't reach tropical storm strength. And if we take a look at it a little bit closer, look at how the yellow it tends to pulse. It's disappearing there, then comes back. And what the models have is they have most of that system crossing the Appalachian Mountains. Now, the problem with crossing the Appalachian Mountains right in here is that a lot of that moisture gets stuck over here. Models don't handle that very well. Okay, and so once that air, two things happen. A lot of the moisture is trapped to the east of the mountains. So when the system comes our way, it's lost a lot of its moisture. And then in addition, because the air is flowing like this over the mountains, you actually get air descending on the western side of the mountains. When air descends, it's compressed and it warms up, and that drops the relative humidity, and so that gets rid of that evaporates a lot of the moisture that's left. And so when we take a look at a model here, it's probably not going to even be as much as you see. There's just no hope that we get enough rain to be a drought buster or even be usable in most locations around the tri-state. So, okay, so I don't want to get your hopes up and make any false promises here. All right, temperatures at weather stations look like this. 86 in Greensburg. They were at 90 a little while ago. 85 in Liberty. It's 80 in Owenton, 80 in Brooksville, also 80 in Mount Orb, with 83 in Norwood. Any of the circles there that are blank, we didn't get a report. And then airport temperatures look like this. Now look at Ashland, Kentucky. 75, because the cloud cover over there coming over the mountains is thicker that way than it is here. It's still 83 at CVG, and at Lunken, 85 at the Butler County Regional Airport. Shelbyville at 87, and then Washington Courthouse and Chillicothe also in the 70s because of that cloud cover. Okay. And if you look at the dew point temperatures, 40s and 50s, that's very comfortable air. That's why it didn't feel so bad when it got close to 90 today. I mean, if you're in the sun, you felt it. I mean, you felt like you were cooking. But if you stepped into the shade with that little bit of a breeze out there, it actually felt pretty nice. And that's because of the absence of all that humidity that we typically get in the middle of the summer. So sunset, 7:46. So that's in like 24 minutes. 83 right now, dropping off to 64 by 11 p.m. Okay, and then overnight, it's going to be another pleasant night, kind of cool and nice, down to 57 officially, with a few spots around the tri-state staying in the 60s. For your morning commute, looking for dry roads, high clouds on the increase, temperatures in the mid-50s to low 60s. Okay, now this is the drought monitor, and it came out Thursday. And I know Ashley and Ethan have talked about this quite a bit, and especially Ethan, because he's from Highland County. And so here's Dayton, here's Highland County right here. The eastern half of Highland County is an extreme drought, and the far eastern part of Highland County is an exceptional drought. Now notice that we have a severe drought over a good portion of, actually most of Warren, all of Clinton, the rest of Highland. Abnormally dry where you see the yellow, and you even have severe drought through most of Owen, Grant, a good portion of Pendleton, and then southern Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. And again, there are some spots that are even drier than this, so it is not good out there. As a matter of fact, I live right there where that second N is. I live about there, and it says that we're in moderate drought, and it's drier than that. Believe it is so dry. I don't think I've seen it this dry for maybe 20 years. At our house. Okay, and here's a full screen view of it, and you can see that that I tell you what, it is so dry over West Virginia and eastern and southeastern Ohio that here doesn't look as bad, but it is still definitely bad. And again, it's that time of year though even though you're probably giving up on some of those flowers, you're giving up on some of the lawns, the important part isn't what you see, it's the roots. And if they stay healthy going into the winter and they can make it through the winter, then your lawn, your garden, especially the perennials I should be talking about, will come back pretty well next year. So very, very dry, and it doesn't take a map to let you know that. You're very, very aware of the fact that it's tinder dry out there. And again, burn bans in many areas. If in doubt, just don't burn anything. It's just not a good idea whatsoever, especially if there's a little bit of a breeze. With a little bit of a breeze, things are so dry that it could turn into a major grass or brush fire very, very quickly. So be very careful about that. Okay, so let's take a look at the 6 to 10 day outlook. Temperature-wise, the Climate Prediction Center says that right here in the Cincinnati area, that red shade says it's going to be warmer than normal by quite a bit. Sorry, I had to get a drink of Diet Mountain Dew. My throat's drying out. As a matter of fact, it's basically in the second to third level. I mean, it's quite dry now, quite warm around the tri-state. Now, if we take a look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which goes out to the 30th, same thing, warmer than normal. And this came out last Friday, but it says we stay warmer than normal into the middle of October. Okay, so temperature-wise, not much of a change. It's not going to be as hot because the sun's not up as long, the nights are longer, so it cools off more, but we're still going to stay warmer than normal for this time of year. Okay. And precipitation-wise, this says, well, some of our southern counties in northern Kentucky could end up a little bit above normal. The rest of us near normal. But as I've mentioned several times since this droughty condition began, that near normal is not going to cut it. It's not going to get us any better. We could stay near normal on into winter, and it still wouldn't catch up on the deficit. And still near normal or maybe a little bit above normal. Well, let's just hope we do get a little bit above normal because any bit of rain will help, but it won't be enough to help us recover to where we were before the drought began. And then the 3 to 4 week outlook says, okay, even though we've got a couple of weeks there where it's near normal, as we head to the middle of October, it's going to stay drier than normal around the tri-state. So you can look at little improvement coming our way over the next next month, let's say. Okay, here's your 7-day forecast. The Reds are back in town. They play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then that is it. That's the end of the home season. They finish on the road. And so tonight they're playing. Wednesday, or not tonight, tomorrow night they're playing. Wednesday and tomorrow, a few sprinkles, chance of a few hit-and-miss sprinkly showers on Wednesday. Don't get your hopes up. It is not going to be enough to help your lawn, your garden, or your farm out. Thursday, partly cloudy, and then sunny, mostly sunny and hot for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The humidity will tick up a little bit, but it still won't be midsummer awful. And then partly cloudy on Monday with a high temperature of 86. And again, if you're heading down to Oktoberfest in Cincinnati, you see that we're going to make it to around 90 on Saturday, and we're talking about just hot, dry weather continuing around the tri-state. Okay, so if we go to beyond the 7-day forecast, we cool off into the low 80s. Actually, by the time we get to the 29th and 30th, the last 2 days of the month, we're going to find ourselves in the mid to upper 70s, and I've got 4 out of those 7 days here that have a question mark raindrop on them, and that means there's a chance of rain each of those days. Just a chance. Again, a few showers here and there, nothing widespread, nothing that lasts a day or so and soaks in, just some hit and miss showers typical of the warm season. And here's that summary graphic for the next 14 days with temperatures. You can see the cooling trend on the high temperature side, not as evident on the low temperature side, but notice both the highs and the lows stay warmer than normal for 14 straight days here in the tri-state. So we stay warmer than normal. And so if we get just a little bit of rain with warmer than normal temperatures, there'll be a lot more evaporation. And so we're just not going to get ahead until we get some cool, damp weather and some rain that lasts, off and on for a couple of days. And that's just not in the cards at this point through the middle of October. So not much in the way of improvement. Okay, so let me change cameras here. Go to this. Well, let's see here. What is going on? All right. Camera 1. There it is. Okay, I guess I was hitting the wrong button, or the computer wasn't responding. And then we'll head over to the Facebook computer, see if anybody has a comment, question, or complaint. We'll take those too if you if you have any. Hopefully, But all right. Okay. He said Highland County won't. Jeff Beechler, Highland County won't get anything. Doesn't look like it. Bad news up in Highland County. And on our website, you can find a report done by one of our reporters, really nice, on how bad it is up in Highland County. And of course, Ethan Emery is from there, and so he knows very well what it's like. Anthony, thank you for the compliment. Melvin Stone Street says, hey, we need some cool weather. Did I have a good weekend? Well, actually, I was off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Had a honey-do list. Didn't touch it. That makes it good. I'm kidding. I can only say that because my wife doesn't watch this. If she did, I'm much better behaved. But no, I had a good. So I had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off, and Saturday and Sunday off. And people asked me, "Well, what were you doing?" I said, "I was practicing for retirement." Okay, so that's the thing. When my dad retired, he had no idea what to do with himself. I'm going to make sure I have something to do other than a honey-do list. Rachel Turco says, when's the next chance for severe weather? It's not for 2 weeks. I don't see anything at all that resembles severe weather for a while. Then here is a guy named Ethan Emery. I wonder who the hell he is. Hi, Ethan. How are you? Ethan is off today. Monday is Ethan's Saturday. Tomorrow is his Sunday. And so, but notice he's a dedicated meteorologist. He's taking part in the discussion here. So Ethan said, when I looked at drought monitor historical data, 2007 was worse than it is now. Almost all the tri-state was under extreme drought. You know what, Ethan? I couldn't remember what year it was, but I do remember back about then. That's when we were planting some trees, and I had to dig beneath the soil. And I've mentioned this before, that we have about this much really good soil, and then once you get down below that, it's clay. And almost every other time that I've dug down to that clay, the clay is moist. It just doesn't dry out very fast under a foot of topsoil. However, back then, it must have been 2007, it was like a rock. I mean, I literally had to take a pickaxe to dig through it, and that's what happened. So, and he said almost all the tri-state back in 2007 was under extreme drought. Also, Campbell County is now under a burn ban. Okay, so that's added to the list. And like I said, if you're in an area, even if you're not under a burn ban, it's just not a good idea to burn anything at this point in time, because even a little breeze could take that tinder dry brush and turn it into a major problem that might blow toward your house. So, so adding to several counties that are in the band, okay? All right. And Ethan goes on. Ethan is never at a loss for words. And I like that because you get a really complete answer. And not to dismiss how bad it is now, though, this is certainly significant. Just adding for context, while looking through the data, I've also noticed that we hadn't had exceptional drought before in the Fox 19 Now viewing area, though I may want to double check that, okay? And obviously we've had, now the drought monitor, I don't know how far back the drought monitor goes, but obviously it's been that dry. In the early 1950s was kind of what they call the Little Dust Bowl. There was the Dust Bowl back in the 30s. And so we've had some droughty years. And I don't know offhand when they started doing the drought monitor. But as he said, we haven't had that before. So, okay, and there it is. If I would read the rest of the 25-year history of the drought monitor. So it started around 1999, 2000. Okay, and so this is the first time we have been this dry other than 2007 in the 25-year history. And then, okay, so it's a very rare thing for us to have this. And I don't know if you may not have been watching this in the early months of when we started it, but as we headed into May, I started talking about the summer forecast and what you can expect. And one of the things that we know from just looking at the patterns that happen, when you transition from a La Nina winter like we had to an El Nino pattern, which is trying to develop, 81% of the time, the summer in this part of the Midwest, okay, so let's say from the Appalachian Mountains over to the Mississippi River, that includes all of our viewing area, 81% of the time, it's hotter than normal and it's drier than normal. Not necessarily this dry, but so this is just a continuation of that. And this pretty much is doing what we thought. Because we looked at all the models and all that, looked at all the historical data, and we thought warmer and drier than normal. A few breaks every once in a while. Even though we started off pretty moist, we got dry. We had a little bit of a break from the dry weather through July, and then we were right back into it. And so this is not really a surprise because it's kind of what we thought, all right? Hello? Okay. So Jeff hasn't been able to ask me for a little while, he says, about is there going to be any snow. But he said he did ask Ethan when Ethan was subbing for me. Not yet, Jeff. We'll work on it. When it comes, we'll make sure you know. All right, Jordan Myers. Good? Just a minute. How much, oh gosh, here we go already. How much snow do you think we will get this winter? Okay, here's what I think is going to happen. And this is not a forecast. This is Steve's educated guess, because at this point, it's about all anybody can do. Typically, a La Nina winter, that is when it's the opposite of what we just had, but it's when the water straddling the equator across the Pacific is colder than normal. That modifies the entire global circulation. You don't seem to think that it could do that, but when you go 10 degrees south to 10 degrees north of the equator, and you go from Asia to South America, that's 5 times the area of the 48 lower states. Okay, so it's millions of square miles. And if you have millions of square miles of ocean with cooler than normal water, it's going to affect the circulation of the whole atmosphere around the globe. And that's what will happen. So typically when you have the cooler than normal water over the Pacific Ocean, the La Nina pattern, you have a mild winter, okay, but it's fairly active and it's wetter than normal. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice to have a wetter than normal winter, kind of make up for this and go into next spring with adequate moisture in the soil. So, okay, so, and I'm getting to the snow part of this. Okay, so here's where we really can't be any good as meteorologists. It would just be a wild guess, or as I call it, an educated guess. Because even though it's warmer than normal, that doesn't mean every day is warmer than normal, okay? That means we could have a week where it's cooler than normal and then a week that's much warmer than normal and would average out warmer than normal. And if one of those wet patterns, that typically it's a wetter pattern over the entire winter, if one of the wetter episodes in that wet pattern happens to strike during a cool week, we could end up with a lot of snow. Now that doesn't mean, and typically in a La Nina winter, if that happens, you may get a lot of snow, but in the next week it melts away, okay? So it's not like we go into winter where 4 or 5 inches of snow falls and 3 weeks later it's still there and 6 weeks later it's still there. It's a very active pattern. It's warmer and wetter than normal most of the time, but it just could occur that one of those cooler episodes during that warmer than normal winter would end up with a lot of precipitation and generate some snow. So La Nina winters typically aren't, but they can have a significant amount of snow. The thing we can say, though, is that snow will not stay on the ground very long. So it won't stay on the ground, and then 6 weeks later it'll be cold and snowy. Okay, so we could have, and by the way, I'm surprised. So Jordan Myers said, "How much snow will we get this winter?" I'm surprised nobody asked if we're going to have a white Christmas, because it's 100 days till Christmas, okay, as of today. So, so Jordan, so it could be snowy at times, but overall the winter, if the La Nina forms as it's expected, will typically be fairly active. That means fairly wet. But if some of those wet systems hit during a cooler episode during that winter, it could also be snowy. Typically, La Nina winters are not very snowy. They're more wet than anything. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to remember which winter. Was it 12? Somewhere back around maybe 2011 or whatever, back about then. My wife used to have a bunch of tropical water plants, and she just would let them go, and they would die in the winter. That winter, that was a La Nina winter, I remember it well, her tropical plants never did die. It stayed mild enough that they never got cold enough to kill them, and they were fine going into the spring. So a La Nina can vary from being really warm and wet to kind of warm and wet with a little bit of snow. And so the takeaway from this is if the La Nina develops as expected, and it's trying to, we don't expect an extended, frigid, snowy period. That just doesn't happen in La Nina winters. We could have a few episodes of snow, but generally wetter than normal. And keep your fingers crossed that it's wetter than normal and the soil moisture is able to get recharged for spring of next year. Okay, Susan Wally, let's see. She said she thought that when I came back I would bring us some cool, wet weather. Sorry, Susan, can't do at this point, so we're hoping that it comes. And then Jim Hammock said, tell Frank I'll send him $1 if we can go back to the 60s and 70s. Well, I'll tell you, Frank's at a weather conference this week, I think it's the NWA conference, National Weather Association. But when I see him, I'll tell him there, Jim. Phil Singleton, say no snow. See, some people like snow, some don't. One great thing about snow, if you get snow, unlike rain, it doesn't run off as fast. It slowly melts in place, and that helps recharge the soil moisture even more. Jordan Myers said we had a white Christmas. I don't know how you remember that. Jordan Myers said 2009 we had a white Christmas. Okay. And one of those things is, how do you define a white Christmas? I define a white Christmas as having either A, measurable snow on the ground when Christmas started, or having measurable snow fall on Christmas Day. Some people say it has to be an inch or more. Okay, there's no official definition of white Christmas. If we have enough snow that you think it's a white Christmas, that's great. My wife is a Christmas person, loves Christmas. She was born on the 25th of July, 5 months before Christmas, and if she had her way, our Christmas decorations would be up year-round. Okay, so Jeff Beechler, he has to go, and hopes I have a great night. Thank you, Jeff. Hope you have a great night, too. Let's see. And then Amanda George Schutz said, I don't know about, she wants to know if our current drought situation is making the hummingbirds travel south. Now, I haven't seen a you know what? The last time I saw a hummingbird was, like the beginning of August. I did see a hummingbird in the beginning of August. But remember, July was wetter than normal, so then it dried out. So I don't know about that, but if anybody else knows, let me know. But I would think that, I don't know. Because hummingbirds obviously go south when it begins to get colder, and they actually, to my knowledge, they do that as the day length changes. They don't monitor, in other words, their body doesn't react to changes in temperature to trigger migration. It reacts to day length. But I don't know, it's a good question. But if they can't find water, obviously they're going to try and find some place to find water, but I don't know if that would make them think, oh, it's time to migrate. So, but now that you mention that, the last time I saw a hummingbird in our yard was at the beginning of August, and it hadn't dried out that much yet because we had a fairly wet July. Jeff, see ya. As soon as we get that snow, you'll be the first to know, okay? All right, and that is it. Let's see, I think Ethan Emery, I haven't seen anything more from him lately, so he's either still researching that or, but that was good information. It's been a while. In other words, we have dry summers, but they don't get this dry very often. And it may have been as far long ago as 2007 that we had a summer that was this dry. The heat hasn't been exceptional, but the lack of moisture has been. All righty, let me go back over the forecast now. That's what I do all the time here. If you're new to this, I go over all the graphics that I have in the show. I then take a look at Facebook to see what kind of comments I get, and I just use the company page. And then we go back and review the forecast. So that's what I'm about to do now. Let me, I can't even remember, let's see, good. Okay, so what you see in the background is the 14-day temperature summary. Let's, by the way, that graphic was done by Ethan Emery. Since we were talking about Ethan, might as well give him credit for putting that together. Really nice you get a really quick glance and see what's going to happen with the temperatures. And when you'll find this particularly useful, wait till we get into winter and a massive cold air outbreak is coming our way. That might not happen this winter, being a La Nina winter, but overall. All right, so let's go to the 7-day forecast. And as soon as that pops up, I'll put it into motion and we'll start talking about it. Oh, and Ethan, by the way, if you're still watching, thanks for that information. It was very helpful. And I'm sure everybody found it very helpful. Okay, so here is your 7-day forecast. The Reds play on Tuesday. They play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's it. That's the end of the season. I think it's going to be dry. And then Friday night is Fireworks Friday, along with a concert by the rap artist Nelly. I don't know if I'm being the age I am. I'm not too familiar with Nelly or Nelly's music. But very popular. And so they've got that big for the last Friday of the season. We've got high temperatures warming to 88 by Friday. Humidity is going to tick up a little bit. It's going to go from what we have now comfortable to slightly uncomfortable, but nothing at all like you get in midsummer. And then it looks hot, dry for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So those of you going to Oktoberfest in Cincinnati should have a nice time. It starts off on Thursday with a high of 84, so the evening will be about like it is now, a little bit cooler. We've got 88 for Friday, 90 for Saturday. And here's the rest of the 7-day forecast. And you can see we stay dry all the way to that Monday. That's the 23rd. The 24th is Tuesday, the first day here. And you can see for the rest of the month, 4 days that we might see some rain. Unfortunately, it's not the kind of widespread, slow, soaking rain. It's that hit and miss, summery shower stuff. So that's that. And what I didn't show you, I think I forgot to load that graphic. Let me find the model output that I was using to show you exactly what is in our mind as far as what we think is going to happen with the precipitation. Okay, now I don't want that one. Man, I've got so many things. There we go. Okay, I'll load this. And we'll step through it. Okay, if you look at this, this is that tropical system that I mentioned. It's too weak to be named, so it didn't reach tropical storm strength, but it is tropical in nature. And here, the big kahuna in this whole forecast is right here, the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, now what's going to happen? This disturbance is going to kind of come up and over the Appalachian Mountains, not all the way, and it's going to leave a lot of moisture behind. Okay, so a lot of the moisture will stay on the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, so as that comes our way, a couple things happen. One, the moisture gets trapped east of the Appalachian Mountains. As it gets over the mountains, the air begins to descend. Okay, so as air descends, the pressure increases around it. It warms up. That lowers the relative humidity, and that literally would evaporate in many of the raindrops that would try to fall. So trapped moisture is one thing that's working against us getting rain. The downsloping on the western side of the Appalachian Mountains, so the winds will come around this like this, and we'll have winds coming off the Appalachian Mountains out of the, northeast for a while, then becoming more and more easterly, but coming right off the mountains. That warms the air, that dries it out, and then the dry air that's already on this side of the mountain. So the moist air is going to warm up, and any raindrops will start to evaporate, and it's going to begin to mix with the drier air over here, and that will also lower the humidity, and that really cuts down on the chance of rainfall. So let's see what this particular model has to say, and I will go through. I'll just drag it by hand rather than automate it. So you can see, okay, now notice how the rainfall's beginning to die out. This is overnight, so we lose the sun's influence as the night cools off, and so a lot of that rain settles down. Okay, you can see it crossing the Appalachian Mountains. Notice how scattered it's become. And notice right here, just watch this. Now this is 12:40 p.m. Tuesday, so this is when we've got sun energy coming into this. So here's this band of rain. Notice how it's already down to only second level. It's only light showers at this point. Okay, now let's just watch that band as it heads north and westward. Okay, we get to 5 o'clock, the warmest part of the day, and it's starting to you see a little dark green, so it's starting to energize a little bit more. We get past all that, there's a little bit more. It's near, now watch, 11:20 p.m., and it just goes away. That's the influence. The night's cooling off. There's not as much energy for the rainfall. And then as we head into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's just nothing coming our way. So unfortunately, it looks like that system, the Appalachian Mountains is the 500-pound gorilla in this forecast. It's kind of in control. And it's interesting because it wasn't long ago that we were having a discussion in the weather office about how much different the climate in the Cincinnati area would be without the Appalachian Mountains there. If you remember back, it was early 90s, the storm of the century, they called it back then, was that big winter nor'easter that went up the coast, dumped 30, 40 inches of snow in spots. There was as much as a foot of snow in our viewing area, but it only made it as far west as Maysville. When you got here to Cincinnati, it was just a little bit, not much at all. If the Appalachian Mountains weren't there, the storm of the century more than likely would have been further inland and we would have been buried in snow. But the damming effect, as we call it, like a water dam, not the curse word dam, the damming effect of the Appalachian Mountains is a real thing. Stops a lot of moisture from coming off the Atlantic Ocean into Cincinnati, stops a lot of dry air from escaping, excuse me. And in the summer, you can also see this because if you look on a really steamy, horrible day, it's humid here. It's almost always more humid over here on the western slopes of the Appalachians because all that moisture pools there and gets blocked by the Appalachian Mountains. So it works both ways. So in this particular case, this unnamed tropical system trying to come over the Appalachian Mountains has trouble doing that. A lot of the moisture gets trapped on the east side of the Appalachian Mountains, so that's the first factor. Second factor is once the air tops the crest of the Appalachians, it begins to go down slope. That additional compression warms it. That lowers the relative humidity, and a lot of the raindrops that try to form evaporate. And then that air is also moving into dry air that's trapped here already. When those two mix, you can't get much rain out of it at all. And so we're not looking at a big rain event, and the biggest factor at this point is the Appalachian Mountains. Now, if this was a much, much stronger system, let's say it was a major hurricane and just did a turn like that, well, that'd be a different circumstance because in this case, the Appalachian Mountains are big enough and high enough to have an influence, a big influence on that small storm. If it's a monster storm, it's an entire different balance here. The monster storm's in control. It would still decrease a little bit, but we can still get a lot of rain off of a tropical system. It just has to be a bigger, stronger system. Okay, so let's go back. Man, I tell you what, some days I think I talk too much. Excuse me a second. Just got to wet that whistle every once in a while. Man, what did I do? Strip through? There we go. All right. So back to the 7-day forecast. We'll look at that one more time. So I kind of got sidetracked there. And then we'll call it a day because it's 7:52 already. Okay, so again, here is that 7-day forecast. We're looking at low tonight of 57. Some spots cooler than that. I can't rule out low 50s in a few spots. Can't rule out low 60s in a few city centers. 83, the high. A few sprinkles in the afternoon. We just saw what's going to happen there. We're not going to see much in the way of rainfall. Reds play tomorrow at Great American Ballpark. Maybe a sprinkle during the game. Will not affect the game whatsoever. I'm thinking of eliminating the slight chance of showers on Wednesday. All the models are saying, ain't going to happen. So even though I've got that still in there, the latest model runs have kind of convinced me that I'm going to drop that. Partly cloudy on Thursday, then sunny and hot for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Again, humidity will increase a little bit, but it'll still be, much different than the middle of summer. And then partly cloudy on Monday with the high back down to 86. Okay, so let's go to beyond the 7-day forecast. And it'll come up here in just a second. We'll see what happens as we head to the end of the month, okay? This goes right on to the 30th of September. So we've got high temperatures in the low 80s. Now, all the way through Sunday, those are warmer than normal, okay? When we get to Monday, that's cooler than normal. So we have, I want to check on that because let me see what the normal high temperature is on the 30th. Excuse me. And we'll try and we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm getting there. Give me a second. All right. Normals for Cincinnati. and surrounding areas. Come on, computer, or come on, iPhone. It's sometimes just I fail to see why this doesn't work. Just reload, and, you know, that's what they say. When things don't work, just try and reload and see if it, there we go, reloading did it. Okay, so the 30th of September, the normal high is 73. Okay, so now I've answered that question. Even 75 is warmer than normal by the time we get to the 30th, okay? So we're looking at 7 more days warmer than normal. Notice we do have the chance on 4 days of some rainfall, the 26th and the 27th, again on the 29th and the 30th. So keep your fingers crossed. But right now there are question marks there because it's not sure, and more than likely it's going to be that summertime spotty precipitation. And if you look at the summary graphic, there you have it. Highs and lows, warmer than normal, right on. You know what? I should have known that. Duh. It's another duh moment. I didn't need to look it up on, I could have just gone to this graphic and told you the normal high is 73. Okay, so we're warmer than normal on highs and lows right on into the 30th of the month, and it is beginning to look like it's going to stay that way, warmer than normal and drier than normal into the middle of October. Okay, that's it for now. Let me quickly check what's going on here on Facebook, see if there's any other comments or questions. Let's see. All right, Iris Posey, good evening. When will we feel fall weather? Okay, Iris, I can do that in 2 ways. One, fall begins Sunday morning, and so no matter what it's like, it's going to be fall weather Sunday morning. But when will we feel real fall? I mean, several of the mornings have felt that way already. I think what we're going to see is an unfall-like pattern at least through the first week of October, maybe to the middle of October. And I'm with you. I like those mornings when there's a tinge of frost and then it warms up and it's nice and sunny with blue skies and, you know, the leaves on the trees. So I'm hoping for that, but it's probably 2 to 3 weeks away. Okay. Ken Huber, thank you for being with us, and that's it. And Ethan Emery, if you're still watching, thank you for that information. I think everybody liked knowing that this exceptional drought in most areas is pretty exceptional and not that common around the tri-state. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me. Hope you get a chance to join me again tomorrow, and we'll have more on what's happening.